Why do they care? Why do you care? Why are some people so easily distracted from the real issues? Why do things that don't matter trend faster and wider than, than what in fact is an imminent threat to us? Those things don't trend as fast. I mean, I don't care what race the vice president, Kamala Harris, is. I know for sure I will not be voting for a son of a Klansman. That's what I know. Let me start over. That's no way to start a show, right? I'll be right. I'll be right back. Well, hello, and welcome to In Your Ear Radio. I am your host, Latoya. So very happy to be with you today on this super hot week, first week of fall. Oh my goodness, really, we still keeping it 100 Vegas? Is that what we doing? All right, shout out to the Vegas weather, keeping it 100. Okay, so y'all know I have to go ahead and share this video. So while you guys are hopping on, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and share this video. Done. Okay. So how y'all doing? Listen, I don't know. I got a new look. My birthday's coming up, and I wanted to do something different. I don't know yet. Y'all tell me what y'all think, but I guess it don't really matter. But anyways, want to do something different because my birthday is coming up. Um, if you guys want to do anything special for your girl, just go vote. Register to vote, and then vote and take somebody with you to vote. That's all I ask. Thank you so very much. Yeah, so we got a lot to talk about. Shout out to GB in the chat. Appreciate you for checking in and joining us, and everybody who's watching live on Facebook and YouTube. I appreciate y'all so much. So we won't be here too long, I'm guessing. But I did want to talk about some things because I feel like a lot of us are being distracted by the distractions, and so I do want to get into that and have a conversation about the intentional intent on distracting us from what's important, what's very important to us right now. Even for those who may not think it's that serious, I'm just letting you know it is that serious. But before we get into all of that, I just wanted to get you guys up to date. We've been talking about AI for what? I would say 3 weeks now. I know I started off talking about this upon having a discussion about a show I watched with Oprah hosting, and I can't think of the name of it right off the top of my head. But she had some heavy hitters on there. Some people who were very prominent in the development of a lot of the social media, not only just the apps that we use and the scrolling techniques, but also just the development of like AI and things of that nature that we're so comfortable with now. And so, I kind of follow up every time I see something new in relation to AI, because one of my big concerns was like deep fakes and people being able to use your image for whatever purpose they want to use it for. And so each week I find something new. We talked about California last week and how the governor there signed a bill to prevent, that from being legal as far as being able to use a person's voice or their likeness without the consent of that person. So that's cool. Then I also learned that coming soon, I don't know how soon, but there's something called blockchain that will be in effect that will help to further protect us, because people, again, can use an image, say it's from you, can call your home and use your voice and tell your loved ones you're in danger and send money right away, different things, right? And so, my concern is, how do we protect ourselves from that? How do we prevent people from being able to do that? And that should have been put into effect before it was even allowed. So, in this case, the cart came before the horse in terms of AI and people being able to use your likeness and your voice. But blockchain is it's a term that they use to say that if you have it's like having a personal footprint with your phone, like with your cell phone, and maybe images and things that you share on social media. So it will identify you as you. So it'll be linked to your actual personal. So basically, if you, I guess, your IP address or whatever they do in that term, in that way to protect, at least I'd be able to identify that it's stamped from you, whatever is going out. So, one of the examples they use is like, it's like having a blue check, which, really isn't a big deal now anymore. You can buy a blue check when you talk about Twitter, currently known as X, and Instagram and things of that nature. But it's similar to that. When a blue check meant something, that it would mean that it officially came from you, and that way people can differentiate between it being someone acting as you, or is it actually being you. So I thought that was cool. And the person who presented this, he was Isaac Hayes' son. He's actually the third, and he's also right now suing the presidential candidate number 45, because he's using his father's music in his campaigns, and he has been asked and now told and now sued because he would not stop using his father's music, and he didn't not have permission with that. So I'm sure that the family does not support him and definitely doesn't want their music associated with him. But yeah, he's the one who brought up this, listening to another show that I love, Sirius XM Urban View, Karen Hunter show, I think it was on. But yeah, so that was interesting to me. That makes me feel a little bit more comfortable about the idea of us having some form of protections, in that way. He also has a new app that is coming out in years to come. I don't have the name in front of me, but it looks very, very interesting. And I'll talk more about it maybe in the near future when I learn a little bit more about it, because I kind of was intrigued and interested in investing in it. Okay, so that's it for AI. So I think that's pretty good news coming on the heel of just not having any protections. I was just watching the news, just keeping up with what's been happening in the Young Dolph case, in the murder trial that included Justin Johnson and his accomplice, Cornelius Smith. And what triggered me to go back and look, is someone was watching it live on YouTube, and they were saying that, in fact, I think Justin Johnson has said that he was initially paid $800 to go and take the life of rapper, entrepreneur, and I would even say philanthropist, Young Dolph. So the suspected shooter, Justin Johnson, he killed Young Dolph at a strip mall cookie shop that Young Dolph frequented often in November of 2021. And yeah, again, he was found guilty of first-degree murder and conspiracy to commit first-degree murder, and being convicted of a felon in possession of a handgun. So he is sentenced to life in prison. And he implicated, if I'm not mistaken, Yo Gotti's elder late brother as a person who put him on to taking the life of Young Dolph. So I don't know how true that is, but that was an implication that he did make. Also, Cornelius Smith is a second-degree suspect gunman, and Hernandez Govan, who is believed to be the mastermind behind the shooting death, is also being charged with murder. So yeah, they testified against each other, and they said initially the total deal was $100,000. I'm not sure if they actually ever got that amount of money, but I just thought it was heartbreaking that they took $800 to take a man's life, and for what reason, right? So yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot. So yeah, unfortunate. Again, if you guys are enjoying the show, don't forget to hit the like. Don't forget to tell your friends, and if you're not shy, you can go ahead and share the video as well. Are you guys going to go check out the Senator J.D. Vance and the Minnesota Governor Tim Walz debate that's coming up October 1st? Anybody watching that, or y'all done? I'm going to check it out. I'm interested to hear how the two men stand up. I already have, my thoughts on how it's going to go. So, but I still like to hear how, people who are going to or running to represent the country and my interests per se, are, how they're interacting with the public, and, how they present themselves publicly. So I got an idea of how it's going to go, but, I'm still going to watch because I like to know what's going on. So yeah, but there's, a lot of distractions coming out. They're doing whatever they can on the other side, and this would be the Republican team, MAGA, and the right wing. They're doing a lot to, I guess, to stay in this race, right? They're doing a lot to stay in this race and to, hopefully win. And as I've heard, wise men say that, Trump isn't planning to win. He's actually plotting to win. You can listen to all the things he says, telling people that they don't need to vote. He has enough votes, and just always putting out the rhetoric that is going to, if he doesn't win, that they cheated, and just, everything he can say to prep, his minions, those who, are poorly educated, um, to act should things not go in a way that he anticipates them going, to protect him possibly from not going to jail. So I will be checking out that debate, and I wonder if there'll be any live chats and all of that like they did with Kamala. And I don't think we're going to see another debate between the vice president and number 45. We don't need to. Definitely was a headache, but I'm glad she said what she said. Thank you very much. But just speaking of diversions, what was going on in the media for a minute, from that debate with Vice President Kamala Harris and number 45. I mean, just a whirlwind of lies from that man, basically. But the one thing that really, I mean, it was a whole song. They eating the dogs, they eating the cats. I mean, it was just wild, right? Like, this dude actually came on social on a platform, I would say international platform at that, and said that Ohio Haitians were eating dogs and cats. They were eating the pets. Like, what? And he heard it on the news, and it was just like, wow. I mean, it's amazing. But then later on, we had JD Vance come out in an interview and admit that, yes, they make shit up when they need to get the attention of the people. And, we knew that, intelligent people knew that. And now his minions know that too. I don't understand how they wouldn't know that. But also they're getting a lot of backlash because, people have had to pull their kids out of school. They had to kind of just lay low out there in Springfield, Ohio, because there's been a lot of outsiders sitting hate their way and making threats. And again, it's not just affecting the Haitian community, it's also affecting other residents that live there who are fearful of taking their kids to school because of the bomb threats and things of that nature. So they just stirred the whole thing up, and they should be held accountable. There should be some type of prosecution put into place. And, shout out to the leader of the nonprofits representing the Haitian community that invoked the private citizen right to file charges Tuesday against former President Donald Trump and his running mate, JD Vance. He said their persistence and relentless, even in the face of the governor and the mayor saying this is false, that shows intent. He wanted to say that it's knowingly awful, and it's willful. It's a willful flouting of criminal law. And, it's just really sad. Like, no one has come out to, well, I won't say no one, because we do have people who did come out and speak against it. And those were the governor and the actual mayor, if I'm not mistaken, of Springfield, Ohio. They did speak out against it. But this is being called under a title. It's a strategy. Remember when one of my earlier shows, maybe the first returning show I did, I talked about the Heritage Foundation. I talked about other people who were part of the Southern Strategy, and they actually have conferences and they teach people how to, evoke invocation and invocation, not invocation. I don't even know if that's a word. Distracting you from what's going on, and even just repeating a lie, just sticking to the plan. And if you notice that with the Republican Party, they're very good at that because it's part of their strategy. They're trained to do things one way, and they do not deviate from it, period. Like, you hear people complaining when we talk about reparations, saying we're never going to get it, we might as well give up. Here's a Republican Party who went 50 years fighting to reverse the Supreme Court's decision on Roe versus Wade. They stayed in. They were part of the long game. They stayed in, and it took them 50 years, but they got it done. And then with, what was it? With the voting rights, 60 years now, they're picking that apart. They're picking that apart as well, and reverting us back to a time when Black men and women and minorities did not have those liberties to be able to have that right to vote. So they're doing their job, and they're not giving up. They're not bowing out. They're not holding their vote. They're not encouraging their people not to vote, and they're doing whatever they can inside the system by having people appointed in positions to be able to move their interests forward. So we have to have that same type of mind state about the things that we love and are passionate about. But yeah, so the dead cat strategy is another strategy that they use, right? And it's official. It's also known as dead catting. And it's a political strategy of deliberately making a shocking announcement to divert media attention away from problems or failures in the areas that present this name for the strategy. It was presented by someone associated. He was a British former Prime Minister Boris Johnson first introduced this, and also the political strategist Linton Crosby. So they came up with this dead cat strategy, and again, it's deliberately done to divert people from whatever's going on, to take attention away from real problems, things that may be an imminent threat to society that they don't want them to be looking at. So they make shocking announcements. Again, dead catting. So just to give you more information about this, these British strategists, Boris, and the other one is his name is he was a mayor and a minister. Those two, Boris actually wrote a column for the March 3rd, 2023 edition of the Telegraph, in which he described the dead cat as a piece of Australian political strategy about what to do in a situation in which the argument is being lost. The facts are overwhelmingly against you. Does that sound familiar, you guys? Does that sound familiar when we think about all the things that are happening around us and how we're being bombarded with false information, and that becomes a trend? Like, we maximize the minimum and minimize the maximum, like the major things that are going on are minimum, and then those things that are really non-factors are made just spread like wildfire all over social media. He says, there was one thing that is absolutely certain about throwing a dead cat on a dining room table, and I don't mean that people will be outraged, alarmed, or disgusted. That is true, but irrelevant. The key point, says this Australian friend who's given his perspective on what the dead cat strategy is that everyone will shout. You throw a dead cat on the table, yes, you're going to be disgusted. Yeah, it's going to be real. But the key thing is people are going to react. Everybody's going to be shout like, geez, and there's a dead cat on the table. And then, in other words, they will be talking about the dead cat, the thing you want them to talk about. And they will not be talking about the issue that has been causing you so much grief. So y'all could have been at the table having a full-blown argument about y'all ain't helping taking care of mama, and I've been doing all this by myself, and then somebody throws a dead cat on the table, all the crying and yelling about that is gone. Now everybody's like, oh my God, it's a dead cat. That's what they're doing to us here when they were talking about this Haitians eating pets type of situation. And now, I mean, we knew it was coming. Those of us who are intelligent, we knew what was coming, especially by her being a Black woman. But just the whole diversion of focusing on the fact that now we want to have a debate about, is the vice president Black? So that's another dead cat strategy that's in our face. So yes, are we being distracted by these distractions? Are we really? I can't say that I am. I pay attention to these things because I like to see how the enemy works. I like to see their play in action, and they are really clever. I can't be mad at them for their brilliance and how their commitments to sticking to what they stick to, but it is very irritating, insulting, and annoying, mainly because people fall for it. So they obviously know it works. And just giving that explanation of throw a dead cat on the table and boom, the whole conversation changes, obviously. So they're good at doing that, and that's what they do. But here's the thing about what's going on in Springfield, Ohio, that they wanted to divert us from mainly. So we got all our panties in a bunch about being upset with this man, number 45, for lying on the Haitian community and causing this uproar that is not only affecting those Haitian immigrants that were invited there and are documented and are there legally, but it's disrupting people who have been there prior, other people of different races and nationalities. They're being affected as well. So in all of this uproar, guess what? They have a senator that's up for re-election, and he's not looking too good. He got some stuff going on. I don't hear nothing in social media. I don't hear anything about it. The first I heard of it again was listening to where I go to get the facts and the real news, and that's on Urban View, channel 126, Sirius XM. And this bad senator, his name is Bernie Moreno, of Springfield. So he's been in the news because he's being scrutinized about lying about his education, and also for stealing money from the Senate campaign. So he raised all of this money and he's been using that money for other things. And we know we have a mayor in New York who's also being held to that. Um, he's being held accountable for allegedly doing some similar things as far as the money is concerned. So just to even speak to that, mayor of New York, is it New Jersey? Okay, let me look up his name. But if you guys know who I'm talking about, the black man who's now under scrutiny for lots of, it's just not just one thing, but the major thing was money, trying to, launder money and using, campaign funds for personal use. But this man is doing the same thing, and he's a white man. So that was another thing that was trending, is this is attack on black people, because we put everybody in a bunch, right? I know when I was talking about people who had died, it was 3 people back to back who passed away, entertainers particularly. And then I saw a post, Eric Adams, thank you very much, GB. Yeah, Eric Adams, Mayor Eric Adams is also being held, to some standard of New York. Yes, okay. So he's being held to this standard that this Senator Bernie Moreno of Springfield, Ohio, is being accused of. And this is a man who has been endorsed by Donald Trump, who shifted his public support of the LGBTQ rights to a hardline opponent. So one minute he was good with people being gay, next minute he's not. And then, of course, he's endorsed by Donald Trump. So that probably had a lot to do with it. He is confronting questions about the existence of a 2008 profile seeking men for one-on-one sex. So one minute you support the LGBTQ community, then you're endorsed by a liar, a bigot, a son of a Klansman, 34 felony, sexual, a convicted sexual abuser. The list is so long with this man. Once you're endorsed by this guy, then you change your stance. But again, you were at some point in 2008, you were actually seeking men for one-on-one sex, and that's your business. The only time it becomes an issue is when you try to wag your finger or downplay other people and their lifestyle, but you secretly are doing the same. And there's another black man is in the media that is also being accused of his thing. He came out, and again, I don't have his name in front of me, but somebody in the chat may have it, and I'll pull it up too, because my memory is just that bad and I didn't write it down. But he was also a black man being accused of, I just saw it trending when he was saying that, society needs a killing, and he was just going hard on the LGBTQ community. And now it comes out that he's like the top porn visitor. Like he loves gay porn and just all these things about him. And of course he says they're lies and it's AI, but he had his personal email linked to it and everything. So yeah, so this dead cat strategy was all put into effect in Springfield, Ohio, to divert us from the senator who's running for re-election this year, Bernie Moreno, who's also under scrutiny, like some other men we know that happen to be black, for money laundering and lying about his education and, maybe some other things as well. So, you know what I'm saying? You have to be, they do things, you just think that they're just ignorant and dumb, but they're very strategic and smart about what they're doing. It sounds like it's just a random, they're eating the pets. But no, we need to get the heat off Senator Bernie Moreno of Springfield, Ohio, because we need him to win that seat. So we don't want people to know that he's stealing and low-key gay and hating on public, openly gay people, and amongst other things. So, you know what I'm saying? So whenever you see them doing that little politics that they do, just know that there's something else going on. It's not just them being ignorant. Okay, it's definitely something else going on. And again, thank you all who are joining now. If you're just joining in, I'm Latoya, host of In Your Ear Radio, and we're talking about, are we being distracted by the distractions and the dead cat strategy? So it's really something. But just on the topic of this, is I also want to get into Janet Jackson's comments as well. Is that I want to just go back to reflect on a thought that Mr. Joe Madison used to bring up, the late great Joe Madison used to bring up, and he would talk about how what the meaning of bullshit is. Like, we hear a lot of bullshit in social media from the former president, number 45, and just his minions, Republicans, and just people with no education, just saying any damn thing, using a dead cat strategy to divert us from talking about the real issues that are happening in plain sight. And it's called bullshit. That's when he used that term. But the point he made to this is the difference between cow manure and is bullshit is not fertile. Nothing grows from bullshit. And that was one of the things, like when farmers would go, just kind of paraphrasing how he explained the story, and I know I'm not being exact, but as I remember it, the farmers would go, and of course, it was always the black farmers that they like to sell the bullshit to, because of course they can't be productive and have productive crop with bullshit. And bull is a male cow, and cow manure is from a female cow. And as we know, it would make sense that a female cow would be fertile and have those particular nutrients. But that was the difference. So a lot of times we're being fed bullshit. Nothing comes from it, and you hear a lot of it, and just know that it's all a strategy. It's part of a dead cat strategy. And it's a real thing. And they intend to distract you and have you laughing and making songs and memes, just so you don't remember that there's a senator in Ohio that's up for re-election and is stealing money, along with some other people that we know that have been brought to our forefront, that we pay probably even more attention to, and just ironically managed to be all over the news and happen to be black. I'm just saying.com. Y'all can tweet that. But just speaking on just, the diversion and things of that nature, I talked about how, maybe 2 shows back, how stuff started to trend again about people holding their voting. And there was a video trending about Ice Cube saying to hold your voting demand and the black agenda and all of this. And it got to me until I realized, I was like, he back, and the timing is just perfect, because this is around the same time bro did this in 2020, right? And then come to find out, as his son spoke out and said, y'all talking about something that happened 4 years ago. This video was old. So I seriously doubt, and I'm willing to bet money, that Ice Cube didn't start recirculating that video. Somebody with bad intentions did, because, that's just what people do. And so, thank you. I'm reading a text message now. I'm sorry, you guys, if I'm going too fast. Let me just fall back for a minute and sip my tea. And if y'all want me to slow down, just hit me up in the chat. I appreciate it. Because I get excited and I just be sitting here by myself, just talking what it feels like by myself, because I'm talking to a camera. So forgive me. I do talk fast when I get excited. But so with the Ice Cube situation, again, those who had ill intentions went and started retrending this video. And so ironically, around the same time that we're in an election where the former president, number 45, has accused Kamala of claiming to be black now, that she hasn't always been black. And then, of course, we have people who have also said this before and after the fact, that they don't believe that she's black, and questions her race, which was, like a non-factor. Like, we wouldn't be having this conversation if she got pulled over by the cops. Like, if they wouldn't say, oh, her mother's Asian, oh, her dad's Jamaican, don't shoot her, give her a chance. Don't shoot her in her face if she says, rebuke you in the name of Jesus, or I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. You would just go ahead and shoot her. Like, you would not question her racial background. Like, looking at her, it's obvious she's a black woman as classified here in the United States of America, because we know in other states, countries, black is not a term that is used. They're called by their tribe, by their family name, their culture, not based on their skin color. Okay, so when it comes to talking about Kamala here in the United States of America, she falls under that criteria, period. So I don't know why we would be having this conversation, but again, as I said in the beginning, the dead cat strategy. That is what it is. It's a diversion to keep us from talking about things that really matter. Because I need to know from you guys, does it really matter? Like today, if you found out that her father was white, which he is not, even though Janet Jackson did say that's what she heard, would it matter to you? Would it change your vote? If you were choosing to vote for her, does it matter? Like, what is the point of even having this conversation? Like, how does that change her policies? The things that she plans to do that benefit not just black people, but that benefit black people. Like, how does that affect all the things that she has proposed to do and the things that she has done being in office and prior to being the vice president of the United States, the things that she has done affected change to the degree where people like you and I have benefited from. How does that make a difference? So just to catch you guys up, for those of you might have been, living up under a rock or not into social media, and I applaud you for not, following the news and being, on social media, because it is bad for your health. It can get to your brain. It can wear you out. Okay. And so I applaud you for that. So I'll get you up to speed. So Janet Jackson did an interview a couple of weeks ago, or maybe even later, but definitely before the death of her brother, Tito Jackson. She did an interview and was asked a question just relating to racism, in the sense that they were speaking to a song that she had, and it kind of tied into the question of just talking about the vice president, and just asking, what her takeaway is as far as race. So she went on to say that, oh, Harris' father is white, she said. And then she said, that's what I was told. I mean, I haven't watched the news in a few days. I was told that they discovered that her father was white. And so the reporter went on to correct her and say, that's not true. Her father is Jamaican and her mother is Indian. So again, I've talked about this too as well, when it comes to race and nationality. Both Asian and, I'm sorry, Jamaican is not a race. Jamaican is a nationality. So in fact, you could actually be white and be Jamaican. Like if you were born in Jamaica as a white person, you would be still a Jamaican. In the same way, if you were Mexican and born in America, you would still be an American. Like you would be a Mexican American, but you would still be an American. So it's about where the region that you were born in. And so, that was that. But let me tell you, when I first heard this, I didn't get the same reaction, me internally, that I would normally get, or that I have gotten when people come out spewing lies about the vice president. Like I wasn't like, here we go. Like, ain't this none? And then being Black, it just adds some more frustration to me. But I didn't get that initial feeling for some reason. Like first of all, I think initially I was surprised. I was surprised that she even said anything. I really was, because I've never known her. She's very reserved. She doesn't talk much about her family. Most that we know that she finally addressed was in her documentary about things that were just rumored. She actually addressed them. But just in interviews, she know how to step over some shit. She normally, I've never known her to step in some shit. So this to me was her stepping in some shit. And I just didn't think that was her character, whether she felt that way or not. I just didn't see her even having that conversation or even answering that. So I think I was kind of numb to the fact, like, this probably isn't real. But once an apology came out, then I was like, oh, wow, this is. And so the apology came out that her supposed manager posted for her. Janet respects Harris, dual heritage, as both Black and Indian, and apologizes for any confusion caused. And she said, I was fired by Jandy and Randy after attempts to improve her image in front of the public opinion of her fans. And that was something that she said she did not deserve. And they said that Randy is her only manager. So they did fire her and retracted that statement. Like, Janet didn't say that. I said what I said, is what I heard. And D.L. Hughley had some things to say. And again, I was still feeling away because I didn't get that, upset feeling I normally get when people just say ignorant things that are not true. So I'm not sure what's going on here, but Walter Davis wants to add to the conversation, and I guess he agrees with Janet, and he's saying that Kamala is not Black, which is the point. It's disingenuous for her to grow up in Canada during her grade school and all of high school years and still claim she wants Black people to vote for her. So, Walter, if you've been listening, again, you can be born wherever you're born and still be Black. Like, what does her living in Canada have to do with anything? Where she went to school, that she is an AKA. She went to a HBCU. She was actually born in Oakland, or at least in California, and lived the majority of her life in California. like this is, the issue. Like if you're going to speak, at least have the facts and not just spew out random stuff. But I understand if you're getting paid by the Russians, I ain't trying to stop your money, but in real life, you should really just know what you're talking about, because this isn't the platform to just spew negativity and just random, non-factor, unsubstantiated things. So here we go. Black women are the most educated. Wow, but I wish her well. Yeah, and I love, see, there you go. Now you're putting up the facts. I like that. So I'm gonna go ahead and give you credit for pointing out the fact that Black women here in the United States are the most educated. We hold the most degrees here in the United States of America. So yeah, that's big ups to you for that, Walter. I appreciate that, because that is a fact. But back to, Janet's comments. Like I said, I wasn't really going after her. I didn't feel the need to wag my finger at her so much, but I was still kind of numb to, did Johnny really say that? Like, that just doesn't sound like her. But DL Hughley was livid. He was livid about the situation, and he spoke out, alleging that Janet Jackson wishes to be white. He talked about her nose, and she, VP Harris still looks the same from Oakland, and you trying to make your nose like a white woman. He talked about Michael Jackson's kids possibly not being Black, and and talked about her nieces and nephews. And this was, he did this in an interview, and he also argued that Jackson knew what she was doing when she questioned Harris's racial identity, and he believed she did it to hurt the vice president. And he just didn't like the fact that he felt that she was spreading far right lies. So that did kind of rub me a certain kind of way. How did y'all feel when y'all heard DL? Did you guys hear that when he came out and said what he said? How did you guys feel about that? Like for me, I didn't like the fact that it was black on black crime. I just didn't, a black man on black. I didn't like the fact that a black man, if it had been a black woman, I probably wouldn't have been like, but I just felt like that's not your place as a black man. Like protect black women at all costs. And you can feel the way you feel. You can even have a statement, but just coming out body shaming her and just going in on her, I didn't really like that so much. Especially, to me, he should have come from a humble place, because remember, he's been eating humble pie. He's been eating a whole lot of humble pie, because initially when the vice president was running to be vice president, aside Joe Biden as a president of the United States, he was out loud. He was out being loud and wrong. He was out being loud and wrong, saying that she was locking up a bunch of black people in California, and that, she just was a cold, hard prosecutor. Like he was really going in, not knowing the fact. But once he did the knowledge, he had a conversation with her and did the actual research and didn't do what Walter did. Well, he did initially, but he went and got what Walter should do is he went and got the facts. He's been publicly apologizing since recently, as maybe a couple months ago. Has it been 2 months from the the Democratic convention? So coming from a man that has done this himself, just spread, I would say, disinformation. I won't even say it was misinformation, I should say, because I don't think he was intentionally trying to bring her down. I think he passionately felt that those things may have been true at the time. But that's why it's important to read and know the facts. And you don't have to hear that from another person's mouth. This is public record information. You can go to that state and find out the facts about her. So once he realized that, like I said, he's been eating humble pie ever since. So I kind of felt a way about the fact that he came out, he went so hard on her. But okay, I'm getting noise here. So he said what he said, and he doubled down on it, and that's what it's been. And Janet hasn't come back out and said anything. Janet hasn't said anything about whether she said that or that she was wrong or clapped back or whatever. She pretty much just is probably mourning the loss of her brother and minding her business and drinking her water. So I would like for her to address it, but if that's how she feels, I think she should just stick with that and fall back. So there was a lot of things being said about that, being the fact that she comes from a Jehovah's Witness family, and a lot with Jehovah's Witnesses, what I've learned is they don't vote, and so that was one of the things. But there were other things that were brought to the surface about her as well. Why she may have said what she said, it could have been dealing with some type of animosity. Shout out to Bilal in the Facebook chat. He says they will always find Black people who will throw the dead cat, so to speak. Sometimes it's for money and sometimes it's out of ignorance. That slave mentality is a real thing. It is. But the thing is, it works on not just Black people, it works on the poorly educated, the easily influenced, period. It works. Like, it's not just white people. I mean, Black people are saying what they have to say, but you have white people that are having bomb threats in Springfield, Ohio, because they believe that these people are really eating dogs and cats. Like, they, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's just ignorant people, ignorant people. Yeah. And shout out to GB, who says, regardless of skin color, I think the deciding factor in whether or not to support either person should be strictly based on their policy and its application to one's own internet. That's all I'm saying. Like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Like, what's important to you? The color of a person's skin or the content of their character? Shout out to Martin Luther King. So that's all I'm saying is, why does that even matter? And why are we being distracted by distraction, those of us who are? Yeah, but even in the situation with Janet, they're saying again that they think it's some tension that could have stemmed from a resurfaced interview where Harris, then a San Francisco deputy city attorney, made remarks about Michael Jackson's child molestation trial in 2003. So the King of Pop was charged with 7 counts of child molestation at the time. Harris had no involvement in the case, but weighed in on the trial as a legal expert. According to TMZ, Harris said in the video clip, in general, the child will be able to recall and recollect some detail, the incident, and that is persuasive to a jury, even if it is the only testimony that is available. Again, you know that Michael Jackson did deny those allegations and pled not guilty, and he was ultimately acquitted of all charges. But I don't see how that would be offensive. I mean, she didn't say anything that didn't make sense, and it didn't seem like it was accusatory to me. It was just that if this person got to understand that my interpretation, you know, y'all might see it differently, of course, but my interpretation is that that's how she feels, you know, children will be. And children can be coerced to lie too. So I get it. You know, that could have been the issue. They all said that Randy was like a MAGA supporter, a stark Republican. And so maybe he's in her ear, telling her things. And because I do, you know that in the past she has encouraged people to vote. So I don't think that she's using her family religion to try to discourage people with saying that the vice president has a white father. But looking at photos who the vice president says is her father, yeah, no, that is not true. And again, that should not be the question. And here's the thing. When is the last time any president, I mean, these have all been white men and besides Barack Obama, but besides Barack Obama, any president's race has been in question? When do we, why don't we ask what nationality is Donald Trump, Clinton? You know, they could be Native American, Irish, Pacific Islander. I mean, we don't know. I mean, if we think about the one drop rule, which was imposed on us during, you know, slavery, all we had to do is have mixed as a Black person with a white skinned person to be considered Black. And I think, you know, in this culture, we have socially and culturally been conditioned to still have that state of mind, even though that rule, that law was actually taken away decades and decades ago. So that is what we are socially conditioned to think. When we see a person with my skin tone, lighter or darker, with a brown hue, or how we say melanated people, we automatically off top consider them Black here in the United States of America. You know, some people don't necessarily like to claim Blackness if they're from, you know, the islands or just another country. You know, for reasons I could understand and kind of not like, because I'm very proud to be a Black woman and have no shame in that at all. It's a beautiful thing knowing my history as a Black woman and also knowing that we are the first blueprint of humanity as Black people. We are the DNA of all people. Shout out to RZA, who I also heard on a talk show talk about the 48 shades of Blackness, and he explained how Because there was a person on there that's very, very light skinned, comes from a family where um, most of this family were pretty brown skin or darker skin, but this particular child was very, very light, probably almost borderline albino light. And he was saying how, white people would accuse him, tease him, and then black people would tease him. Like he got it from both ends about his skin color. Well, he's not white or he's not black, or vice versa. And RZA came in just to say, to do the knowledge on the 48 shades of blackness. Like you have to go through 48 shades of brown or black before you get to white. And even in science, we're taught that white is actually a recessive gene. So it takes a while for you even to become white. And we saw that over history. If you go back and read history, it teaches us how our colors transition over centuries to where we have all of these hues, all these different shades. And we know that just in the black community, that's why we say we are the global majority, because there are more shades of brown than there are shades of white globally. And it just, scientifically, it makes sense. Naturally, that's what it would be. So that was good to know. But yeah, I think here we're culturally conditioned. Shout out to Mr. Joe Madison, the late great Joe Madison, who said we are in America. We're culturally conditioned to believe white is superior and black is inferior. And the manifestation of black is that black people are undervalued, underestimated, and marginalized. So again, we're being distracted by distractions because we're having a conversation about a woman's race and not her policies. Because remember, when that was the question, her policy was the issue, that was addressed by her, by people such as myself, publicly, giving you the details of who she is and what her intentions are and what she has done. And so that didn't last long. Again, she stepped over that shit, right? She, gave it to you. So now it's, oh, well, she's not black. So every time she knocks one out the park, they try to, throw something else at her. And she's going to knock them all out the park, because as long as we stay focused and realize and understand that these are distractions, these are intentional distractions, and they're not just saying goofy stuff, like because they're ignorant, even though they're saying these things because their intention is to distract you from the senator in Ohio who got cases just like the New York mayor right now. They need that seat. So they don't want you to let that Trump endorsed senator not get your vote because, you know about his money laundering accusations and the fact that he's low key gay and is, hating on gay people. You know what I'm saying? So they're going to tell you that the Haitians are eating cats and dogs because there's a lot of discrimination when it comes to people with brown skin. So just remember that. Just remember that. And, don't forget about Project 2025, because you also have this weird as number 45 talking about Vice President Kamala's Project 2025. And I'm like, no, the Project 2025 belongs to the Heritage Foundation and all of those who are a part of it, who wrote policies to be implemented. Some of them are in effect. Just thinking of the SAVE Act. That is one thing that's in effect right now. Well, they tried to put into effect with the government shutdown, forgive me, but there are things in effect, for example, that have existed since, let me say, 1977, where in Missouri, they have a law that prevents pregnant women from divorcing while married. So they have to actually give birth before they can divorce. And you know that with Project 2025, one of the things they're trying to do is to take away the no-fault divorce. So remember when we had the no-fault divorce, when we didn't have the no-fault divorce, you had to have a reason that the courts deemed to be rational to divorce. And prior to that, it was very hard for women to divorce. So women would, and then it was discriminatory because men could just go in and say, oh, my wife committed adultery. And it was like, okay, sign on the dotted line. But when a woman came in and said, oh, my husband committed adultery, they were required that she present the name of the person and other details. So there was scrutiny then. And then that goes back to when we have these conversations about back in the 50s and the 60s, for example, people stayed together more, marriages were together more. And that's what Project 2025 is arguing, that men are marrying more now because it's so easy to get divorced. And the thing about the 50s and 60s is some of those people should not have been married, and but they could not leave the situation. Women didn't have the rights that they have today. We have today. We couldn't even own credit cards. We couldn't be homeowners. Everything had to be in our spouse's name. It was benefits to being married, whether you was getting your ass beat or being cheated on or mistreated, or just having unwanted babies because of a marital rape or whatever. I'm not saying every relationship was like that, but that is something to consider because it really did happen. So a lot of people stayed in marriages back then because they didn't have an option to just go and divorce. It was more difficult to divorce than it is now. So it makes sense now, but Project 2025 wants to bring that back. They want to bring it back. And again, in Missouri, since 1973, there has been restrictions such as this that where pregnant women cannot divorce while they're pregnant. And this is a legislative action that basically says that it creates a dangerous situation. Well, to be there, okay, so there's a this was trending a lot. Let me just give you guys a little history on this. This Missouri end of where women can't divorce while pregnant. Well, it was trending that, oh, this was a new law implemented in Missouri recently. And so the fact of the matter is that they've had this rule since 1973 that you couldn't divorce until after the pregnancy. And so there is some fighting against it. So the latest legislative action is an attempt to end the requirement, not to create it. So it is in existence again since 1973. And there was a bill introduced in the Missouri legislature in January that seeks to remove the restriction of divorcing while pregnant. Opponents of the law say it can create a dangerous situation for women who have been or could be abused, as the financial challenges of living separately from their spouse without court-ordered financial support can make it difficult to leave. Another family attorney law in Missouri said that the restriction exists because the law requires financial support and custodial agreements for each child of marriage to be part of the finalized divorce. Each of those agreements require paternity to be determined by the court. Each child is technically a party to such case, but an unborn child cannot be a party to a court case, which is kind of interesting to me that now an unborn child is not a person yet. So we got to wait till this child becomes a person, and then we can include this person in the proceeding, but not before. Kind of contradictory to me. I think it's kind of contradictory to me because, you know, you said that life begins at pregnancy. So this child should already be included and part of the proceedings regardless. So yeah, I just thought that was pretty interesting. And, you know, when there was the Democratic shutdown, if you guys know, there was a Democratic shutdown. Well, technically, it would have been because the Democrats were fighting to our benefit, I would say. But there was a shutdown that was almost in effect, that did not take effect, thank goodness. But because the representatives did end up approving to push this review of the SAVE Act through to December 20th. So 341 to 82, 78 of those being senators who approved a spending bill that would keep funding steady until December 20th. So when there's a government shutdown, what happens is the government employees don't get paid until they can get this bill passed. And so they were fighting to get this spending bill passed, which also included the SAVE Act that was included. And I talked about that last week, how sometimes bills don't necessarily not get passed because people don't support what's in it. It's everything. There's other things that may be included that people don't support. So you might have a bill that gives you a raise that allows you to have a cost of living increase, but it also says that it's a felony to commit a petty larceny now. So if that's in the bill, some people may not agree to sign it because, okay, yeah, I do support the federal minimum wage going up, but I don't support it being a felony to commit a petty larceny per se. So just, rough example. But They were fighting about that because they wanted the SAVE Act to go into effect. And just so you know, the SAVE Act um, makes it, which is already in effect, it's illegal for immigrants to vote, but it's also they're trying to implement stopping women from voting. And the reason why I say they're trying to stop women from voting is because, and again, this is another thing from Project 2025. If you read the 900-page, um, whatever they're calling it, proposal, again, a lot of those things are in effect. But the SAVE Act amends the National Voter Registration Act of 1993 by introducing a requirement for individuals to provide proof of U.S. citizenship when registering to vote in federal elections. Eligible documents include a real ID, compliant identification indicating U.S. citizenship, a valid U.S. passport, military ID, and a service record. A government, a government issued photo ID showing U.S. birthplace or government issued photo ID that does not indicate birthplace or citizenship, and a valid secondary document. All of this to vote. Mind you, your ID already is what it is. Like they've already done the research to give you whatever you present when you go vote, which is your identification. So all this extra documentation is going to be required for women who change their name after marriage. So if your maiden name is not on your driver's license, you're going to need to present your birth certificate as well as your driver's license and maybe other documents like a marriage or divorce decree as well. So that's what they're trying to put inside of this SAVE Act. And this will prevent reportedly up to 90% of American eligible voters, women, from being able to vote if they don't have the proper documentation. So why are they doing all of this? And that's the thing people have to remember is that, when people tell you our votes don't count and that it's all a game and that they pick the president and they pick this, trust me, if it was that cut and dry, if it was just that simple, they wouldn't have all of these stops in place. Everything they can think of to try to suppress people that they don't want to vote from voting, and now they're particularly attacking women. So on one end, they don't want you to be able to divorce. On the other end, they're going to make it very difficult for you to be married because you have to do a lot of documentation showing in order to vote. And that does discourage people. Who wants to go looking for the birth certificate? There were some people who were born on reservations that they were not born in hospitals, because when you're born in a hospital, that you're presented with the birth certificate. Some people were born before birth certificates were an issue, where some people don't even really know the year they were born. They're still alive and eligible to vote. Some people don't have those records. They're 90 something years old, 80 something years old. They don't know where they daggone birth certificate at, but they've been married and they might be widowed at this time. But now you're telling these elderly people, for example, to show up at the voting booth with a birth certificate, and you're going to turn them away if they cannot prove who they are with just their ID. Like, this is a lot. I can't understand why anybody would want to support a president who would support something like this, that are doing everything they can to try to suppress the vote. Shout out to Mr. Bilal, who says that Congressman Adam Clayton Powell Jr., who appeared to be white physically, had a grandmother who was enslaved, and he was discriminated against by blacks and whites as young men. As a young man, he proudly proclaimed his blackness. Amen. Like, they want you to pick and choose when to be black to their advantage, when it works to their benefit, and be mad at you because of the hue of your skin and try to use that against you. No, you created this race. You divided us. So yeah. And GB says it takes a really fragile, weak-minded, and insecure person to need a law to empower them over another person based on gender. Very serious, very serious. It is. And that's the thing. And do we want fragile, weak-minded people in a position of power next to the nuclear code? Being capable of declaring war, just making decisions for our life here in the United States. Are we really thinking this through? Like, even with the immigration laws, it's like they want to make it so that they can just do like a stop and frisk like they do in New York, where they can just stop people on the street and say, you need to show your papers. Like, a lot of us look just like people who were born in different countries. We look like the islanders and different people. So y'all think this is just going to be, this is something to crack down on immigration. Yeah, we know who they're coming after. They're coming after people with brown hues. And then that lumps us all in. If you don't care about them people, Well, let me just tell you, that lumps you in there too. You will be included. They could look at me and say, you look like you from Ghana. Let me see your papers. Like the hell? I don't have no papers. I'm supposed to walk around my birth certificate, my social security card, and my driver's license, my real ID. Like, what's going on here? People need to think things through and understand it. Anything that affects one person affects us all. None of us are free until we're all free. And we have to always consider that because, again, they're coming for us all. And, there's a saying that says, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So one bite at a time, they're taking away our rights. And they'll get to the whole elephant if we allow them to. If we have be apathetic about voting and who we are allowing to represent us in the United States of America, Senate and Congress, and as president, and even in more local commissioners, mayors, all of them, county assessor, all of these people have an effect and can affect change on our lives. And this is what's important. So don't be distracted by the distraction. Don't go with the dead cat thing. And the thing is the dead cat strategy. There is a 5 calls app. So whenever these things come up, because there was an imminent threat to the government shutting down because of the SAVE Act that the Democrats were totally against, it was not going to save a bill, and were prepared to shut down the government, even if it meant that workers would not get paid until this bill went through. We would have had to get their attention, and maybe a lot of people did in between time. But there is a 5 calls app. Whenever you want to speak out and be heard from your local representative, you can go to the 5 calls app. You can also go to vote.gov, look up who your representatives are. You can email them. You can call their office. You can blow up their lines, because trust me, a squeaky wheel will get the oil, and that's just what it is. So don't forget that, you guys. It's important that our voices are heard. We might not always get what we want, but it's important that we are heard, because at least we are their constituents, and at least they know that we said what we said. And so when they don't answer to our call, then we know every 2 years we can vote some people out of their seats in 6 years, and for the Senate, it's 6 years, and then of course Congress is 2 years. And those seats matter just as much as the presidency, because remember, the president, along with the vice president, can be the tiebreaker in a vote in the Senate. So we do need to have a strong vice president that supports our interests. And again, a bill has to be passed through the Congress. So we need the majority of the people in those seats to have our interests at heart. And then it's same for the Senate. So we have to have the right people in place in order to get these bills passed. But, people are being pushed off the voter rolls. And then there's just a lot of what I would say, like, people, there's a lot of contradiction going on that, again, just talking about, how they're taking away women's rights and things of that nature. There's a lot of contradiction going on, because we see all of the abortion bans as part of Project 2025, and they were successful. Having elected number 45, he was able to bring in 3 additional Supreme Court representatives that made those interests that may not necessarily support our interests, for the majority of us who care about freedom, justice, and equality, that he has people in those seats that would vote against us. So the majority of the Supreme Court is, in his favor. And so that's why Roe versus Wade was overturned. So just think, if you get the right president in, we wouldn't have had this issue. If we would have had Hillary in at the time, Hillary Clinton, we definitely wouldn't be talking about a story that I want to talk about with the young lady who 2 years ago lost her life because she she lives in a state in Georgia where she is not, it's not legal to have abortions after the 12-month term. 6 weeks, 12 months. Oh my God, I sound like Trump. This dude is going around telling people, which I'm sure you guys heard on the debate, that they're giving abortions after the baby's born. Again, don't just think he's being wild. Ask yourself, why did he say that? What is he trying to get us not to think about? Why is he saying ignorant stuff? So yeah, that's crazy. But this young lady, I was listening to an interview her mother was on, and her 2 sisters on a Laura Coach show on CNN the other night. And she, it was just the summer before the Roe versus Wade was overturned, that she became pregnant. And again, this was in 2022. And again, she lives in the state of Georgia, and they, again, took away abortion after 6 weeks. I'm not sure how far along she was, but she was far along enough to be able to go to another state, which she did go to have an abortion. So she was driving to North Carolina, to have a procedure done. In the process, she got caught in traffic. By the time she arrived, her appointment time had expired, and so they said they couldn't help her because it was so many other people coming in to the office to have these abortions, because in their state they were being denied. So they couldn't accommodate her, and gave her an abortion pill instead. So Amber Nicole Thurman went ahead and took the abortion pill. She took one day, and then she took one another day. And the second day is when she ended up having lots of complications. So along with the complications she had, she started having rare complications that the baby would, or the fetus would not, whatever it's called at that status. I don't want to get people thinking that she had a 9-month baby in her womb. But the pregnancy did not expel all of the fetus tissue from her body. So she showed up at Piedmont Henry Hospital, that's in Georgia, after this, in need of a routine procedure to clear it from her uterus. This is also called, in some terms, an abortion, or medically a D&C. And so once she advised them that she had taken an abortion pill and that she was having complications, she was in a lot of pain, they were confused and in fear of treating her, because there were laws that could cost them 10 years in prison if they did a D&C or an abortion, which basically her pregnancy was not viable. She was being infected by her womb not completing the process. And they let her suffer for 20 hours. They let her suffer for 20 hours in fear of treating her, and then gave her a medication that caused her heart to stop. And then, eventually she died, leaving a 6-year-old behind. But when I watched this interview on CNN, my heart just sank, because the mother, the first thing she said is her daughter was in so much pain. That's all she talked about. Like, Mom, you just don't understand how much pain I'm in. Like, I don't think you understand. The mom was like, you're going to be all right, baby. Just made me think about how my mom would do me if I was in that situation. She'd be rubbing my head and telling me it's going to be all right and praying for me. And that's what her mother was doing. But she was like, no, no. And by the time we decided to treat her again, 20 hours later, after her suffering, she became infected. Her sisters she FaceTimed her sisters, and they were on an interview with Laura Cole, saying how she was, she said, I imagine looking at the picture, she was like my color. And they said, my sister was blue. She was on FaceTime and she was blue, and she was not talking, and she was literally just staring at me, just locking eyes. She said they never said anything to each other. She just stared at her like she knew this was the last time she was going to see her sisters. And she just stared at them before she went into the operating room. And again, her mother reiterated to her, like, I will be right here when you come out. I will be right here. This woman suffered again for 20 hours in pain and infection and heart failure. And she told her mom, you'll be here. And she kept, reiterating to her mom, you have to take care of your grandson now. You have to. Like, she was telling her, like, look, this is about to be a done deal with me. And it just broke my heart, because all the mom kept saying is, I handed my child off, her 28-year-old daughter. She handed her off to these doctors in good faith. And that was the last time she saw her daughter alive. And they just are traumatized by the fact that she suffered so much, which she shouldn't have had to suffer, considering that this was a top of the line hospital who had the tools, and they had everything they needed to be able to help her, and they did not do that. And so these same people who are against abortion are people who, in fact, don't really give a damn about life. Because why would you want a woman to suffer? A woman who's alive and existing, why would you want her to suffer and have to die because of a faulty procedure? So that's sad. And just another way of just talking about, the contradictions of people who supposedly say they're pro-life. A lot of you may have heard Freddie Eugene Owens was actually executed just recently, September 20th. There was a lot of social media trying to get him at least a stay so that his case could continue to be reviewed. Again, Freddie Eugene Owens was killed by execution in the county prison that he was in, uh, for a crime that he may not have committed. And there was evidence to support that. They had DNA, and the governor did not give him a clemency and just said off with it. Again, this is a governor who also supports um, banning abortion. His name is Governor Henry McMaster. He joined the members of a General Assembly of the pro-life community to sign a fetal heartbeat and protection from Abortion Act into law. And this was back in May of 2023. This governor that would not give clemency to Freddie Eugene Owens. The bill that he signed protects life by prohibiting abortions after a fetal heartbeat has been detected, and exceptions for rape and incest during the first 12 weeks of pregnancy and medical emergency or fatal fetal anomalies. He went on to say, quote, "With my signature, the Fetal Heartbeat and Protection from Abortion Act is now law and will begin saving the lives of unborn children immediately." And the Governor Henry McMaster went on to say that this is a great day for life in South Carolina. But the fight is not over. We stand ready to defend this legislation against any challenges and are confident we will succeed. And then he said the right to life must be preserved, and we will do everything we can to protect it. Yeah, this is the same guy who would not give a stay or clemency to Freddie Eugene Owens, who was on death row for a crime that evidence proves that he may not have committed. Okay. Yeah, this is crazy. So Freddie Eugene Owens, his alias is Khalil Divine, Black Son Allah. He was born here in the United States, and he was convicted in South Carolina for a 1997 killing of Irene Granger Graves at a convenience store clerk. He was 19 at the time, and an 18-year-old accomplice shot and killed Graves during a robbery in 1987. Okay, so this is a different story. So anyways, he was accused of killing her in 1997, again, Irene Granger Graves. While the accomplice pleaded guilty and was later jailed for voluntary manslaughter, Owens was found guilty of murder and sentenced to death in 1999. The death sentence was overturned twice before resentencing trials restored the death penalty for Owens, which was subsequently upheld by the higher courts. Owens was also charged with murdering Christopher Brian Lee, a fellow prisoner, in 1999. But separate from that, again, his death sentence was ordered to be carried out October 3rd, 2008, but the execution did not proceed due to a U.S. Supreme Court granting a stay of execution for Owens while pending appeal. Later, Owens was rescheduled to be executed in January of 2009, but the execution date was delayed for legal reasons. 12 years later, a third death warrant was approved, scheduling Owens' new execution date as of June 25th, 2021, but it was again ultimately stayed until they were given the choice of death by electrocution or firing squad. I didn't even know they still had firing squads. What in the firing squad? What country is this? So Owens chose not to personally select an execution method to facilitate his upcoming execution, and instead he wanted to give one of his lawyers the power of attorney to choose a method of execution for him. He explained that why he made this decision. He said that he's a Muslim, and in Islam, it was a sin to commit suicide, and letting him choose the way he preferred to die was akin to a form of suicide, and thus abstained from making that choice for religious reasons. He also confirmed he said he did not want to die by electrocution. Also, just a side note that he had previously petitioned the courts in 2023 to get rid of the firing squad. He said that, along with several other death row inmates, he said that he filed this lawsuit to the courts of South Carolina to seek to ban the use of the firing squad and electrocution on the grounds that they were cruel and unusual punishments and could cause unnecessary pain and suffering to the condemned. But the South Carolina Supreme Courts deemed it legal. They did not. So the firing squad is still there, electrocution, and also the injection. So the lawyer did end up deciding for him, as we know, it was by injection, lethal injection, that he succumbed to his death. Yeah, this is a sad story. But again, this is the same governor who we quoted as being pro-life, right? This is the same governor who wants to protect the unborn fetus, but here we have humans that are alive and in the world and in society, and you say it's okay to kill them. Like, right or wrong, if you're pro-life, you should not support people being killed. You should not support the death penalty. So I say that you people that run around here that are fall behind him, most of you who say you're Christians, and also abortion is not in the Bible. It's not part of the Ten Commandments, but abortion is not even mentioned in the Bible. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm willing to bet my last dollar. But this is what a lot of so-called Christians run on. Like, it's, it's committing a murder, and if that's God's will, it is what it is. But I'm going to use a quote from, again, the late great Mr. Joe Madison. Some of y'all are cafeteria Christians. Y'all do a la carte. Y'all pick and choose what y'all want to be a sin or what should be condemned and what shouldn't be. Because I know one thing for sure that's in the Bible, and that's in Deuteronomy. It prohibits humans from eating pork. And how many of you Christians eat pork? And it's a logical thing. Like, I'm not judging you. Like, I ingest certain things that are probably not good for my health as well. But I'm just saying, y'all not trying to lock people up for eating pork, Christians. Y'all not trying to get a law passed so that these farmers can stop farming pigs and putting everything in our food, from our candy to our meats to they put pork in everything. Like, it's really hard. You have to follow a Jewish regimen that in order to eat properly, looking at the U or the D code on packaging for food, because they put pork in everything. But it says no swine, no green eggs and ham, Sam. Like, okay, no, whatever. But yeah, so you're cafeteria Christian. You pick and choose what you want to be a sin. But again, it's detrimental. Pork is bad for you. And eat enough of it, you'll end up with high blood pressure. It will end up taking your life real slow and miserably. And when you go to the doctor and they, diagnose you with all of these ailments, one of the first things they recommend is to stop eating swine. Okay, so like I said, y'all cafeteria Christians, and then you have Vice President Kamala Harris, who is against the death penalty. Okay, so here's a woman who not only supports women having complete autonomy over their reproductive rights, she also supports men and women not being executed by other men and women, guilty or not guilty. And the thing is, maybe more people would be in support of it if they could prove actually that someone did something heinous enough to be executed. But 55% of criminals that are exonerated, 55% of people who are charged here in the United States for crimes that end up being exonerated are Black. And 53% of those are murder exonerations. So the majority, of people who sit on death row for crimes that they did not commit per se, or being charged with crimes that they did not commit, are majority Black. So that's another thing she's doing to help Black people without calling it a Black policy, to protect the innocents from their lives being taken by so-called pro-lifers. That's all I'm saying.com. Y'all could tweet that. So yeah. It's just crazy, because then I saw a lot of things trending where they were saying, well, how come Kamala Harris didn't give him clemency? How come Kamala Harris didn't give Freddie Owens clemency? Okay, number one, she's the vice president. She's not the president. Y'all need to stop. Nobody ever talks about vice presidents up until a Black woman being a vice president. Like, nobody talked about Pence. Do y'all remember who Clinton's vice president was? Do we remember all of these vice presidents? Like, now everybody wants to make everything that's wrong with America the vice president's issue, which happens to be a Black woman. But number one, she's not the president. Number two, the president cannot pardon a state offense. So even if President Joe Biden would have chosen to pardon him, he didn't have that ability to do so. But guess who do? Guess who does? The Supreme Court. And they don't have enough votes. I'm sure Takaji would have been happy to at least give him a stay and let, due process take effect and allow the DNA results to come back and more investigation to be done. But the majority of the Supreme Court voted against allowing this man to have clemency, and were okay with him dying. The same Supreme Court that just overturned Roe versus Wade and are allowing states to decide what woman, what woman can have reproductive health protections. Because all we think about, or some people, is, oh, women want to just get pregnant and then go have an abortion. Some women are actually wanting to be pregnant, are very elated that they're pregnant, and then they have a miscarriage. And the same thing happens in the situation I explained with the young lady, the 28-year-old who died after being in the hospital for 20 hours, not being treated, suffering in excruciating pain and turning blue. A person that has a miscarriage, they have to have the same procedure that we call an abortion, a D&C, where they have to scrape out the uterus, because if you leave whatever's in there, it's going to cause her to be septic. So it is a medical procedure that is necessary to save the life of a woman who wanted that baby, but the baby didn't make it. So they can't even do that, because that's part of an abortion in some states, depending on what the criteria are. So for you cafeteria Christians who are just saying, oh, Black women or women in general need to stop having abortions, first of all, who are you to tell a person what to do with their body? My rights end where yours meet. I'm not affecting you by the choices that I make with my body. But in the end, a lot of women are going to die because there's a law that the men's in suits and ties can determine if a woman can have abortion or not. If a woman can have medical treatment. I don't even like to use the term abortion because, again, it's just like a one-track mind. All we think about is, for some ignorant people, it's a form of birth control. No, it's a form of medical care. And for some women, it's imminent. It's going to save their life. And now we have doctors who are afraid to lose their license, or who are afraid to go to jail, that won't even treat these women. But you say you're pro-life, though. But you won't even allow people to save a life because you're worried about a life that can't be saved or may not be viable. And again, it's none of your damn business. It's none of your business. But just think about that when you guys are having these conversations with people, like how ignorant it sounds and how contradictory it is to argue about what a woman should be able to do with her body. Okay, man, they're going to come for you next. They're going to start telling you what you can and can't do with your body. They're already trying to take away birth control. Again, who are you to tell women what to do with their body? If a woman doesn't want to have a baby, she has a right. But guess what? Every woman that takes birth control is not trying to prevent a pregnancy. Some women are trying to prevent heavy bleeding. They're trying to prevent other health issues that may be going on with their body. And, in some instances, it's acne, or even to regulate their periods. It's so many different reasons that people go to the doctor and get certain treatments that affect their reproductive system that just doesn't have to do with not wanting a pregnancy. And it's not your business. That's why it's between the doctor and the patient, because you did not go to medical school. And even if you did, it is not your choice to decide what's the best thing for a woman, especially when you are the same people who deny benefits to these women. You don't want them to have paid maternity leave. You don't want them to have sick leave. You don't want their children to have, not first grade, but pre-K. You don't want them to be able to have affordable childcare. You don't care about them not being able to afford the cost of rent. You don't care about them not being able to afford the cost of food. No matter how much you say it, you don't give a damn. You say that because you know that is a talking point that is important to people. But you don't care because your bills support that. Your bills speak for you. Men lie, women lie, the numbers don't. The facts are plain as day. It's written. It's written what you support. You say one thing, but your policies speak total opposite of what you're saying. Then you got this man Trump talking about you won't have to worry about getting an abortion. What kind of shit is that? What are you saying? Yes, bullshit. Like, what are you saying? You won't have to. What are you talking about? Like, why? It just amazes me. It really, really amazes me. And shout out to Joe Manchin, who blocked the paid family leave bill in the Senate by one vote. So it passed the Congress. Why? Probably because it's majority Democrat. Did it pass the Senate? No, it was blocked by one simple vote. Okay, so listen, I don't bang. It's not about Democrat or Republican to me. I support the party of freedom, and based on the policies that I review and read, I can see who has my best interest at heart. And maybe everything that they do is not in the interest of what I would want them to do, but the other side wants to take everything away from me, everything, and they are not shy about it. They're not trying to hide it. The only time they try to conceal it is when it may affect their voting, the votes. It may cause people to turn their backs on them and their strategy. But their strategy is what it is. They don't give a damn about any of us. I just look, I was doing research on historically, just like how well have we been under Republican versus Democrat, like as far as a country as a whole. And we know the economy fluctuates. But if you guys go back and do the research, under a Democratic government, administration, we always do well. I remember when Barack Obama put it into the Affordable Care Act, and then there was a housing act. I can't think of the exact name, but I benefited from that because under a Republican administration, the economy just blew up. Houses, they sold these houses at extreme rates, and then the market crashed. You couldn't refinance your house. You were stuck with a high interest rate and this high mortgage. And he implemented policies that would allow either your mortgage to be reduced, your interest rate to reduce, or even the cost of your loan. Those things, hey, listen, you know what I'm saying? But he was cleaning up the former president's mess. That was Bush, right? And so, even with disease, we saw what happened under a Trump administration. When COVID came out, millions of people died here in the United States. He was not proper in his leadership. Scientists said if the United States would have just shut down for 2 weeks, remember, we were shut down for 2 years, but if we would have just shut down as a country for 2 weeks, we could have eradicated this disease. But instead, we had a leader who was going out telling people, oh, you don't need a mask. Oh, we'll just inject you with chlorine or Clorox. We'll let the states choose what they want to do. And, just nothing in the interest of saving the lives of the people that he represented, because he only represents people who agree with what he got going on. But how many people died globally? Because this stuff got out of hand. It went from an epidemic to a pandemic, meaning the whole world was affected. But that's not a thing that really happens here in modern times in the United States. Okay. So remember when Ebola came out? That was Ebola came out back in 1976 under Jimmy Carter. Did it get out of control? No. Under an Obama administration, when it came out, did it get out of control? No. I think it was a handful of people who died, and rest in peace. No life. I don't want to see anybody die, but it wasn't millions. It wasn't millions of people who are still suffering that live with long COVID. Like they're coming out with, it's just so much going on associated with this COVID. So many lives were lost. I lost 2 people that I love deeply and dearly thanks to Donald Trump. So yeah, I feel a ways about him. I feel a whole ways about him because I do blame him. Anthrax under George Bush, that got out of control. Like people were scared to open their mail. Like they didn't shut that down too fast, did they? Monkeypox. And then it came back again under the Biden administration. Did it get out of control? No. People were in the media saying, oh, they're trying to scare us. But it was a real thing. But they have things in effect to counteract against these things. If people will just do what the scientists suggest, it helps. Maybe it's I can't talk, a vaccine. And just, and they gave the vaccine to those who were most vulnerable at the time to try to slow it down. And here we are, which is not a monkeypox outbreak. And even when AIDS came out, that was under the Reagan administration. That got out of control. Like, just think about all the diseases that got out of control and who was leading. Was it a Republican president or a Democratic president? Was administration majority Republican or was it Democrat? And that lets you know who really cares about the people versus the corporation. Because we know that America is a corporation and it is a capitalistic society, but you got to have some type of humanity. Like, the reason why you can be a capitalistic society is because you have humans that stimulate the economy. You have humans that work and build your businesses for you. Like, you need humans, at least have some freaking respect for them and give them what they need to live comfortably and peacefully rather than making your pockets fat. So that's all I'm saying. So don't be distracted by the distractions. Don't go for the dead cat strategy where they throw a dead cat in a room to keep you from talking about the fact that there's an actual senator in Ohio who doing some thug thizzles, like some of the Black people that we mad about getting the light shined on them, some of us, for the same thing. But you ain't heard nothing about it. And he ain't Black. I'm just saying, .com. Y'all can tweet it. So And we know when the rest of the world catches a cold, uh, Black people catch the flu. Like we get really, really sick. We're gonna get it the worst. I mean, if you think about all the diseases here in the United States, just go down a list. We are the most affected by them. We are the most likely to die if we get them. Prostate cancer, breast cancer, um, just name a disease. Okay, so don't get distracted, y'all. Don't get distracted because that's exactly what they want. They want us to be distracted, and I'm just here to tell you that the best thing you can do is vote your interest. And again, my birthday coming up next week. So yeah, you guys, I won't be here next week. I'm going to be celebrating my life, God willing. I will be in the physical, but I will not be present on In Your Ear Radio. And so again, if you wanted to do something special for me, I appreciate it. And I would just say register to vote. And if you're already registered to vote, go find just one other person to register and make sure you take them with you to the voting booth in November. And that will be the best gift you can give me. Your presence is my present. So that's all I ask if you want to do anything special for me. But I just want to thank all of you guys who hung out with your girl live. Thank you in the chat. Shout out to my guys in the chat. I appreciate you so much. And those of you on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much for watching. And thank you to everybody who watches later. I appreciate y'all because I look and I see you guys, you're interested in what I have to say. And that's cool. That's real cool. But yeah, I just want to just thank you so much for just being here with me and letting me share what I know with you. And I hope that it was fruitful. And let me just go ahead and give you our so much love to y'all in your radio again. I'm not here next week, but I will follow up the following weekend after my birthday. And I hope you guys enjoy the rest of your Saturday. Be safe, be good, and tell somebody that you love them. And enjoy the rest of your week as well. All right, y'all, I'm out.